More and more people all over the world are seeing UFOs in the sky.
I was so scared and so confused.
And their testimony is finally being taken seriously.
That scared me to the point where I thought I was going to faint.
It's really hard to describe what it feels like when your reality completely flips.
Even more disturbing, there's proof that these harrowing encounters with suspected extraterrestrial craft and alien beings are real.
Witnesses were left with very physical markings on their bodies.
4 straight slice marks.
I had deep puncture wounds at the top of both of my legs.
This is real evidence. This is inexplicable evidence.
Their shocking, close, and physical encounters are impossible to ignore.
You can't have any closer contact than meeting an ET face-to-face.
They were all about 3.5 feet tall. They were all gray.
At least 4 people died.
A frightening new reality is dawning. We are not alone, and they have been coming for us. Encounters with extraterrestrials and their craft are life-changing, especially when they're so up close and personal, they touch you.
When someone is actually seeing UFOs face-to-face, physically being touched by extraterrestrials, this would be classified as a close encounter of the third kind.
You can't get more intense than physical contact.
This may end up being a very traumatic experience that could scar you for life.
These contact encounters leave a lasting impression, not just on your mind, but also your body.
Remnants that are left behind, that are tangible, that you can see and touch and feel.
Indentations, burn marks, puncture holes, pieces of skin missing, radiation-like illnesses.
It's not nearly as uncommon as we thought.
And for those that have physical contact with alien beings, it's a traumatic, life-changing experience.
This has been the subject of nightmares for me for 43 years. Didn't understand it then, I don't understand it now.
Taking a break from their military duties to go camping in the Ozarks, Air Force medic Terry Lovelace and his friend Toby ventured deep into the fastness of Devil's Den State Park for a few days of wilderness adventure.
We lived on the base, and it had nuclear-armed B-52s and a squadron of Minuteman II ICBM missiles, so security was very tight. It wasn't the kind of place where I could walk around. I've never been camping in my life, so we set a date and arranged for a 4-day weekend in June of 1977.
Little do they know that this area actually has a long history of very strange events.
Terry and Toby's terrifying tale begins soon after sundown.
We were chatting, laughing, and having a good time. The forest had been really loud with crickets and tree frogs and all the insects, and that suddenly went silent. The breeze stopped. The only noise was the fire as it crackled, and it unnerved me.
And it would become even more unnerving when the two friends see the source of this eerie silence.
On the western horizon, there was this set of 3 little stars. They were as bright as a North Star, in a perfect little triangle. Toby asked me, "Hey Terry, were those lights there before?" And the lights did a somersault. What is this thing?
Terry makes a chilling realization. What they're seeing is a craft, and even more alarming, it's coming towards them.
It dipped down with the apex clearly pointed in our direction and started this glide down. It never deviated. It was evident that it was a solid object, and it was clearly headed in our direction.
As it got closer, the men could see a large triangular shape. It's a UFO.
I had the sense that it was moving with purpose, and that really scared me.
When you see a real, silent, massive triangle, it cannot be compared to anything else. Often, people are not quite sure what they're seeing. Is this 3 planes flying in a V formation? Is this some sort of stealth bomber? By the time it's almost on top of you, you realize this is nothing I've ever seen before.
Here we are with this thing 3,000 feet over our heads. As soon as I saw that, I felt this sensation of calm wash over me. Almost sedation. All the fear and all the anxiety that I had about the crickets going quiet and seeing this thing in the sky was all gone.
Terry and his friend are caught in a trance.
When you come in contact with an actual UFO or a being, what happens is that you feel as if you're under their control in some way.
Researchers believe that in some of these cases, the ETs themselves are suppressing people's strong emotional reactions in order to facilitate the onboard experience or prevent people from lashing out.
And Terry's harrowing experience is about to get even more personal.
A beam of light came down from underneath and from the center of the thing. It struck us. It struck my friend. It struck our tent, my car, his backpack, his cooler, and struck the campfire. It struck everything. I had the sense that it was scanning us, and then it just switched off.
Suddenly, Terry is overcome by a wave of exhaustion.
I felt like all I wanted to do was get in that tent and close my eyes. And that's what we did. I didn't bother to undress or take off my boots. The second my head hit that inflatable pillow, I was out.
Clearly, there is some sort of field they are emanating that sedates these people.
When Terry wakes up in his tent hours later, the horror of the unknown takes hold.
It must have been about an hour before dawn. I didn't have my wits about me. I was just not with it. I saw lights through the canvas of the tent. These lights were extremely bright. They would flash for a millisecond, light up the tent like crazy. And I sat up, and I realized that I was in pain. The next thing I noticed was that my boots had been unlaced, and that unnerved me. I turned my attention to my friend, who's on his knees, looking out of this flap in the tent. He had tracks of tears down the side of his face.
Terry's living nightmare is about to crash into reality.
So I got to my knees, and I looked out of the flap of the tent, and I could see that this had descended. It's now just 30 feet over this meadow, and it was absolutely enormous. I would estimate it's a city block long on each leg of the triangle, and probably 5 stories deep.
This was not a small craft. This craft was several blocks wide, huge. This is the type of encounter where we can throw out any explanations of misperception. You cannot misperceive something that you are feet away from.
And now, an already horrified Terry is left facing another strange vision, torn from a nightmare.
It's difficult to describe, but that's what I saw. They were walking around kind of like tourists. They're just looking around. It was frightening. And there were a dozen, and they were all paired up in 2s and 3s. I thought they were children. They were all about 3.5 feet tall. They were all gray. I said, Toby, man, what are these kids doing out here in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere?
In a lot of alien abduction stories, there are these types of aliens that are described as the Greys.
The Greys are the most notorious of the many beings that have plagued experiencers.
This does seem unusual to witness that many gray aliens all in one pack.
And he said, Terry, man, those ain't no little kids. Look at them. They're not human beings. Don't you remember? They took us and they hurt us.
And that's when Terry's memories of being taken come rushing back.
I had a memory of being inside the ship. All the fear came flooding back. I was just absolutely frightened out of my wits.
Nothing can prepare a person for physical contact with an extraterrestrial being or craft. It is a reality-shattering experience.
There are many who have seen things or have experienced things that they can't explain.
It completely changes your life.
It's a big epiphany to realize that we're not the be-all, end-all.
This is the first thing they remember when they wake up, the last thing they remember when they go to sleep.
All the fear came flooding back. I was scared to death.
For Terry Lovelace, a camping trip turns into a UFO abduction nightmare when he finds himself aboard an alien craft.
Suddenly, I was standing, I was holding all of my clothing and my boots, and I couldn't move. I was completely frozen, except for my eyes. It was so big that I could barely make out figures at the far end. I'm scared to death, but I want to know where I'm at. It was weird because the place was just incredibly brightly lit, and I think maybe that's why we got burned. I saw the little gray guys running around. I don't think that those are living, sentient beings like you and I. I think there's some combination of artificial intelligence and quantum computing and maybe some biological material.
Then, Terry comes face to face with another terrifying entity.
This was the most frightening thing that I saw. He was about 6 foot tall, wearing a gray garment that had a V-neck to it. And he had hardly any ears to speak of, just 2 nostrils, a very small slit for a mouth. And his eyes were all black. He turns his head, and we locked eyes. And what radiated back from his eyes was not any mercy or empathy, it was just raw intellect. And I felt so inferior.
This seems very similar to a lot of the accounts that I've heard. You find yourself in a very brightly lit room and you see those beings around you.
In an instant, he knew me, he knew my wife, he knew my secrets, he knew my dreams, my ambitions. It felt like the biggest invasion of privacy I'd ever experienced in my life.
These beings are taking over your free will, which is pretty scary.
The little gray guys came and they got me next. And I am like a statue. I have my clothing in my hand, but I can't move. Somehow I was gliding. I wasn't walking, I was gliding. And I went down this corridor. At the end of this long hallway, there were tubes big enough to accommodate a human being. That scared me to the point where I thought I was gonna faint, but I didn't. Wish I had, you know? And we got to this room, and there was a medical table.
Still with no control over his body, Terry's next horrifying memory is in an alien operating gallery.
I'm on this table, and they're doing something to my lower back, and whatever they were doing hurt. And the pain that I experienced was sharp, like a cutting. I'm screaming as loud as I can, and I can't hear myself. This thing stops and turns its head in my direction.
Once again, Terry feels this alien creature enter his mind.
He said, "Why are you screaming? You know we take you back, now stop screaming." And he reached over and tapped me on the forehead, and I was out.
This is really an odyssey. Terry carries literally all the hallmarks of a classic and unique contact encounter.
But I'm surprised that he was able to remember the pain, because normally that is the part that we block completely out of our consciousness.
Terry's case has some very common aspects. The almost sedated feeling when you should be running in fear from this craft and these beings. Missing time, waking up feeling anxious, frightened, your clothes are not on properly.
I was unconscious again until I saw the lights through the tent, and that's when I woke up.
Around the same time as Terry's harrowing experience, thousands of kilometers south in Colares, Brazil, local villagers are also experiencing painful, terrifying, and deadly events related to unexplainable craft in the sky.
I've been a UFO investigator nearly 50 years, and I have seen, believe me, all that is to be seen. But I have never, ever heard of something that happened in Colares anywhere else in the planet.
Renowned UFO journalist A.J. Javard was given privileged access to one of the strangest and most terrifying UFO cases in Brazil's history.
Colares Island was a very calm fisherman's village. People were very humble, living in shacks. But in 1977, people would see UFOs, and one type of craft would attack them using a beam of light. Their blood was sucked out of their bodies. This is why this phenomenon was called chupa-chupa, or vampire lights. At least 4 people died.
There are not a lot of cases of this overtly hostile type of UFO activity.
This is not just a benign incursion.
This is clearly a mass assault.
At first, the island's lone physician doesn't believe the stories she hears from the villagers.
She was very surprised with people telling her that they were attacked by UFOs. They were very weak. They would have this very huge wound, and these marks, in some cases, would look like burns.
These beams of light did not only burn, they left puncture wounds. So the thought was maybe they were extracting blood through these puncture wounds.
The villagers all describe the same encounter. A frightening, strange craft in the sky, zapping them with electrifying light.
The sensation that these people felt was they were paralyzed. The beams would provoke some sort of burn in their skin that got deeper and deeper and deeper. And people would faint for minutes, hours, sometimes days. They would say that not only blood was taken away from their bodies, but also their energy, vital energy.
Despite the troubling physical evidence and growing hysteria, the local doctor doesn't know what to believe.
She thought that people were hallucinating or something.
And there is such a phenomenon as group hallucination.
But mass hysteria is not going to leave an actual physical scar on your body.
And these attacks are not limited to human victims. The local animals are also targeted.
Animals like goats, cows, dogs were also attacked. They couldn't resist because they have weaker bodies. I found no case of a surviving animal after an attack.
Animal mutilations are bizarre and troubling events linked to UFO sightings around the globe.
Another aspect of UFO research that has not had a lot of attention is what we now call the animal mutilation phenomena, or UADs, unusual animal deaths. And this is largely focused on cattle. This has begun as early as the 1960s. It is still going on today.
There has been a cattle mutilation in Custer County near West Cliff, Colorado.
In many of these cases, the cows organs are removed, their tongue, their eyes, their sexual organs, all the blood.
Eyeball, ears, part of the mouth, the rectal area, it's all gone.
Particularly disturbing is the precision and complexity of the incisions, leaving medical experts baffled.
I asked the veterinarian if he could duplicate it, and he said no way. Even under good circumstances, but not out in the field in the middle of the night.
These gruesome events leave one big question. Why would aliens be doing this?
It could very well be for genetic experimentation. Cattle have long strands of DNA that are absolutely identical to human DNA.
The attacks on the animals and villagers on Colares threaten the community and leave the local doctor without answers.
Now, this woman was a skeptic about the phenomenon.
She was smart enough to make blood samples from them, so she confirmed scientifically, medically, that these people had actually blood extracted from their bodies.
But the doctor was about to witness the terrifying UFO for herself.
And she thought, wow, now it's my turn. I will be attacked.
Physical contact with an extraterrestrial being is life-changing and unforgettable.
A very strong emotional scar is left after those experiences.
The doctor on Colares Island loses all skepticism and confronts her own horror when she comes face to face with an invasive alien ship.
She saw one of these UFOs, a huge object. They wanted to make themselves known to her.
And all of a sudden, you have this experience. This tells us that it is a real phenomenon.
She realized that people was telling the truth.
The emotional damage of these encounters is deep, and sometimes so are the physical wounds.
I wanted to forget it and move on from it, but there is no moving past it.
When you have a physical remnant left behind, it's jarring.
They will show you the marks that they have in their bodies.
This is real evidence. This is physical evidence. This is inexplicable evidence.
After months of horrifying attacks, the people of Colares, Brazil, are terrified and at their breaking point.
Different cultures have very different opinions or ideas about the paranormal, the supernatural, and the otherworldly.
The population couldn't go out to fish. They couldn't go out to see the land because they would get attacked. They couldn't do anything.
Eventually, the Brazilian Air Force gets involved to investigate and control the story.
Captain William Giolanda put together a team of 3,000 to 4,000 men. Operation Saucer had 3 goals: to talk to the victims, to get the people calmed down, and to engage in a contact with intelligences beyond the chupa-chupa phenomena.
But when the doctor reports her professional and personal experiences, the true mission of Operation Saucer seems to become clear.
Giolanda told her, "Doctor, don't let them know. Tell them some story."
To have that pressure of authority saying, there's nothing to see here, there had to be a schism going on in her mind. How do I deal with this?
That could be taken as evidence that the government knows more than it says it does, and admitting that can pose a challenge to their own ability to rule.
And after several short months, Operation Saucer is quietly terminated.
The government or the military didn't release any information at all.
But the residents of Colares know what happened. They were attacked by a malicious presence, and the proof is on their bodies. In North Carolina, Sev Talk has her own reoccurring experiences and physical contact with aliens to wrestle with.
Over the course of my life, I've had so many markings on my body, and deep down inside, I know it's the grays.
One of the puzzling things about experiencers is that they're left with marks on their body. This can sometimes be a bruise, but sometimes you have weird designs, almost like a puncture wound.
When a pattern of unexplainable and mysterious puncture wounds appear on Sev's body, her natural instinct is fear.
There's a red X. It was made up of 9 small little red dots. I'm scared, and I'm worried, and I'm angry because I thought that the grays were messing with me.
This is not something that happens by accident.
As a child, you have a first encounter and then again and again a few years later until you have a seriously traumatic experience as an adult, which triggers that awakening.
As Sev faces one of her most alarming encounters, her mind is flooded with memories of an extraterrestrial nightmare that she knows was real.
9 days later, another red X appeared on my body. I remember lying on this bed that looks like a hospital bed, and I'm in a dimly lit room, and there's hardly any furniture in it, and I don't know where I am. I feel paralyzed. And I sense that there's something behind me. I am able to turn my head, and right here is a gray doing something to my back. And we locked eyes. It was like looking into 2 pools of black oil. In the past, when I met the grays, there was telepathic communication. This time there's nothing. And we just look at each other, and I am scared to death.
When you have a physical encounter with a being, you come out completely changed. You cannot make sense of it.
It can cause the extremes of emotion. You're pushed to the very limits of fear.
Fortunately for Sev, this nightmare encounter screeches to a quick end.
And I turn my head back around, and ding, I'm in my bedroom. My eyes pop open, and I'm completely alert. It feels like something bit me on my butt, and it really hurt. So I walk over to the living room. There's another X that looks just like the first X. I get a little choked up talking about it because the fear comes back.
She had absolute conclusive physical proof that this was not a dream.
When I saw that red X, I was stunned. Dreams do not put red X's on your butt.
Is it for medical reasons? Is it for experimentation reasons? Are they taking samples? Are they putting in implants?
It's a chilling experience to think these marks were made on these people by something we do not understand.
And Terry Lovelace's alien camping encounter also leaves him physically marked, something he only realizes after the gray beings that abducted him and his friend depart.
I had the worst sunburn I'd ever had in my life. We were acutely dehydrated.
In pain and terrified, Terry and Toby make a harrowing retreat out of the woods and back home, only to discover their ordeal is far from over.
I walked in the door, my wife says, "Oh my God, what happened to you? How'd you get so burned so bad?" I spent 3 days in the hospital.
Where Terry gets an unwanted visit from a group of intimidating officials with a stern demand.
"Sergeant Lovelace, you're to have no contact with Sergeant Tobias in any way, shape, or form from this point forward. This is an order, Sergeant." And he bends down next to my ear and he whispers, "Son, I know, and you 2 knuckleheads stumbled onto something while you were out there. All I need to know is how many pictures did you take of it?"
Terry is left speechless, suddenly without his best friend, and facing the harsh reality that he is being forced into a cover-up.
I was scared to death.
Encountering a UFO is a traumatic, life-altering experience, especially when your actual body has been attacked.
After all these years, I sleep with a light on, and if I hear noises in the middle of the night, it freaks me out.
Terry finds solace in running, which years later would land him back in the hospital, and discovering invasive implants.
Every time I would hit the 2-mile mark in my run, there was an area above my right knee that would go completely numb.
Alien implants are known to be found in many areas. This can be in your arms, in your legs, in your sinuses, under your jaw, even in your brain.
These physical remnants have psychological effects. How can they not?
They x-rayed my leg. Inadvertently, they captured these objects. The thing below my leg, the radiologist told me, this is clearly bone tissue, but what's unusual is I've never seen bone tissue sprout in the middle of a muscle, much less several pieces of bone, and then arrange themselves in a symmetrical pattern.
And then doctors find something even more concerning, a foreign object, evidence of what Terry believes to be an alien implant.
The thing above my knee, they did not have a clue. An electronic device of some kind, about the size of a fingernail with 2 wires attached. But there is no scar there. And that troubled the radiologist.
There seems to be a technology that is used here where you can insert a physical object without any scarring at all.
Yet this object is here.
These alien implants have several really remarkable properties. Normally when someone has some sort of foreign material in their body rejects it. And that's not what's happening here.
Deeply disturbed by this revelation, Terry makes plans to have the mysterious object surgically removed. But before he can, he wakes up one morning to a horrifying surprise.
I had deep puncture wounds at the top of both of my legs. There was no blood.
And then it somehow miraculously disappears.
A medical professional was going to retrieve it and examine it, so it was retrieved and extracted before that could have happened.
If you're an honest doctor, you're going to say this is beyond the ordinary.
And Terry knows who or what is responsible.
I said to my wife, they came last night and they took this thing out of my leg.
X-rays of Terry's legs confirm his suspicion.
Sure enough, the thing above my knee was gone. My doctor said, did you see they left you something? In the middle of your femur, to the right, there are 2 tiny wires.
This shocking realization rocks Terry to his core.
I had a lot of trouble coming to grips with that, and that triggered more nightmares.
This is really the smoking gun evidence that researchers have been looking for decades.
Terry and all those who suffer an extraterrestrial physical encounter are left to struggle, looking for answers.
I think they tracked me for some reason. I'm an average guy with a wife and 2 kids, and I don't know what would make me interesting.
By and large, the explanation people are getting from the ETs themselves, that this has to do with health.
I think they are doing one big research on planet Earth.
Are they looking to evoke fear? There is an aspect of experimentation that's going on here.
Stories about alien implants and physical marks have been around for decades.
The idea of alien implants began as a common motif in popular culture in the 1950s. There's a lot of contemporary fears about being watched. An alien implant seems like a logical extension from the way that our modern surveillance society operates.
The question is why? Why would these seemingly normal people be chosen as unwitting guinea pigs in bizarre alien experiments? Ufologists have noticed some patterns that have emerged among the chosen few.
People who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity are often more likely to have contact.
As could be the case for Sev Tak, a spiritual counselor facing her own demons after an encounter that leaves her marked in more ways than one.
Experiencers often have triangles, circles, in Seb's case, an X.
What is curious to me is the fact that these are not just random asymmetrical dots arbitrarily around the body.
I can't describe to you what it feels like when your reality completely flips.
This phenomena does follow families. If you are having encounters, it's very likely your parents or your grandparents are also having encounters.
I saw a UFO outside my window when I was age 11. It wasn't a dream, I know what I saw.
My first conscious memories of having ET contact was when I was 10 years old. I lost count of how many times it happened.
Like Sev and Terry, the villagers of Colares are no strangers to UFO sightings. And 20 years after their violent, unexplainable encounters, a now retired general has a shocking truth to tell.
It was time for him to face what was going on.
He called me, he said, "Now I am retired and I can talk to you. I'll tell you everything you want to know."
Physical violation by unknown, possibly extraterrestrial creatures leaves evidence. And this evidence may even reveal the truth behind these encounters.
The doctor said that absolutely does not belong in your body.
When I go to sleep at night, am I out there talking to ETs?
Once you are chosen, you're part of the experiment for life.
The Colares Island UFO mystery gets more bizarre 20 years after the initial events, when A.J. Javard meets the retired head of the military operation.
He reported to us amazing stories. They saw a huge cylinder-like object. All of a sudden, a small door was open, and an alien came out of it, floating. He approached Hollande and his men. After a few minutes, the alien floated back to the top of his huge spaceship, and the object went away.
You want to talk about irrefutable evidence that something strange was going on. This is one of those cases.
The incredible testimony from the general sent an unstoppable ripple of excitement and a call to action through the ufology community.
Brazil was the first country in the world to officially recognize the existence of UFOs. Other military decided to come forward too. It created an environment that reached other countries of South America. I started interviewing people in Argentina, Chile, Peru, Paraguay.
Individuals in certain rank and file, particularly in the military, lend instant credibility by virtue of what they do. But the irony is that typically very few of those sorts of people will come forward because they're concerned about losing that credibility.
Despite official acknowledgement and the release of once secret materials from the Brazilian Air Force, most of the collected evidence is still highly guarded.
The best photos and films has never surfaced. I'll never stop asking the military to come forward with this material.
I'm glad some of the files were able to finally see the light of day. It's important for these people of Colares. They went through hell there. They deserved answers.
Back in America, Terry Lovelace has intimidating and threatening run-ins with the military after his terrifying ordeal.
I was interviewed by the Office of Special Investigations. It was theater done to intimidate me, and they succeeded because I was scared to death.
If I come out, is the government going to come after me? We hear so many stories about people who come out and then there's a knock on their door, or they get really menacing phone calls. And I was afraid that was going to happen to me.
These fears of being ridiculed, bullied, or worse leave experiencers grappling with the very real trauma of their troubling encounters, alone.
So many of us are having experiences, but we're not saying anything. We're just bottling it up, and this is not healthy for our lives.
I believed in UFOs and extraterrestrial beings. Yes, these things are real.
Why Brazil? Why blood? Why those people? We don't have those answers. Melinda had the feeling that whoever those beings are, they are extracting blood from people to create a vaccine that could immunize them to this planet.
There's not one culture historically that has not been touched by this phenomenon.
What is absolutely mind-blowing is individuals from around the world reporting the same thing.
The whole world is not delusional. Something real and physical is happening to these people.
And the personal impact shakes them to their very core.
For a long time, I felt anger, and I realized I'm going to tell the world about this. I think that would be best for my mental health.
All of the experiences that I've been having since childhood are real. For the first time in my life, I declared that I cannot deal with this alone. A few weeks later, I declared I'm writing a book, and I'm coming out.
These life-altering encounters push us towards incredibly difficult and terrifying realizations.
We're not at the top of the food chain. Whatever these things are, the one that I locked eyes with, I can say this, he's 500 rungs up the evolutionary ladder from where I'm at.
Physical contact by possibly extraterrestrial creatures leaves visible and invisible scars and happens more often than most imagine.
We're talking about millions of people around the world who report some sort of contact experience.
These events really do take place.
The more people who stand up and say, this happened to me, the less we'll be able to ignore it.
I think just by virtue of telling these stories, more people are going to have recognition. Take your foot off the gas pedal of opinion and listen.
And the truth is not easy.
I felt like I was divulging some kind of family secret. That was a hard obstacle to get over.
My particular path included the ETs, and I had to face it. I hear from experiencers, and I help them process what's happening to them, because this is not a mistake.
This is a pattern I see over and over again. What can start out as very negative turns 180 degrees.
I get emails from all over the world. They tell me these amazing stories, and I write them back and say, I understand. You're not alone. That's validation, that's comfort in numbers.
And for those most intimately affected, the meaning of these encounters has changed over time.
The flash burns and the sunburn, the dehydration, I think those were all collateral damage. I don't think that the object of the exercise was to torture me.
They were actually helping me.
But not everyone is left believing the ETs had good intentions.
Was it intentional? Of course it was. They didn't care at all for the victims.
Not all ETs are going to be our space brothers. Perhaps this is a good example of the type of ETs you do not want to run into. ones who are ruthless, ones who are not compassionate, and who will go so far as to cause death among people who get too close.
These events are being taken seriously and studied, looking for answers that may help individuals and ultimately our entire species.
There are certain studies being done right now measuring the brain of individuals who have had contact experiences.
Perhaps we will find other civilizations that are more advanced or equally advanced or less advanced than the human race.
I personally believe that communicating with ETs and accepting them and learning from them is how we're going to find individual and collective peace on this planet.
Whatever happens next on our ET journey will be an incredible chapter in a long, evolving story of physical and emotional encounters.
We are all swimming in uncharted waters here, but with an open mind, an open heart, and the willingness to listen. The universe just may meet us halfway.
They're here, they do take some of us, and I think within my lifetime, the world will know.
One of the biggest questions of mankind is, why are we here and who are we? The answers to those questions will be divulged through our acceptance that we are not the only advanced civilization in this galaxy or in other galaxies.
We are part of a community that is spread all over the universe. Anytime now, perhaps this year, we will face our visitors